but it was they who took the lead on 28 minutes. Giant striker Nikola Zigic able to convert Roger Johnson's flick-on from a corner kick. It didn't take Arsenal long to get back on level terms though, 11 minutes in fact, as Andrei Arshavin crossed for Robin van Persie to volley the equaliser. In a superb second half, Arsenal looked the more likely winners. But with extra time looming, Zigic flicked the ball on for substitute Obafemi Martins. The Nigerian, who'd only been on the pitch 6 minutes, took advantage of miscommunication in the Arsenal defence to win the League Cup for his side. Contrasting emotions at the final whistle for Birmingham manager Alex McLeish and his Arsenal counterpart Arsene Wenger, as Arsenal's 6-year trophy drought continues. As they celebrate their club's first major trophy in almost 50 years. Guy McCree, Al Jazeera.
England's Luke Donald has moved up to 3rd in the world rankings after of Germany in the final of the WGC Match Play Championship on Sunday. The Englishman was 3 shots up early on before Kamer pulled it back to all square by the halfway stage. But Donald came back again to win the 11th, 12th and 15th holes to restore his 3-shot lead. And he eventually completing a 3-2 victory on the 16th hole. To NBA, with the San Antonio Spurs that beat the Memphis Grizzlies 95-88 after a thrilling match. Tony Parker, who was sidelined by an injury, so it was all up to Manu Ginobili to save his team. Ginobili scored 18 of his season-high 35 points in the 4th quarter, rallying the Spurs to their 21st consecutive home victory. And that's it for me, David.
Thank you very much indeed. Gaddafi again, the woman who was by his side for nearly a decade. Even his nurse has quit. The 38-year-old may have had a close relationship, so some say, with the leader, but as Neve Barker reports, she's gone home to mummy.
Returning to Ukraine after 9 years at Gaddafi's side, 38-year-old Galina Kolodnitskaya is met by family at Kiev airport. She arrived with hundreds of foreign evacuees. Her story distinctly different from the many others fleeing the violence in Libya. In these undated pictures, Kolodnitskaya stands close to the heart of the Gaddafi regime. She was one of 4 Ukrainian nurses taking care of him, but a US diplomatic cable published by WikiLeaks late last year claimed the Libyan leader was deeply attached to Kolodnitskaya. The cable described her as a voluptuous blonde who always travelled with the Gaddafi as only she knew his routine. It's believed the two may have been romantically involved. Back in Ukraine, Kolodnitskaya is avoiding public attention, all while Gaddafi's leadership teeters precariously. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera, Moscow.
Yeah, more from me in a couple of minutes with more on the uprising in Libya. And this is a meeting of the Human Rights Council. Our cameras are there.
If you're a Nokia user, you can download Al Jazeera's news widget from Nokia's Ovis store. The news widget, available on compatible Nokia devices, gives users quick and easy access to real-time news updates from Al Jazeera English. See the world in real time. Al Jazeera Mobile.
From local traders to international finance, it's commerce that makes the world go round. For global companies and developing markets, communication is the currency, and information is the most valuable commodity. Counting the cost at this time on Al Jazeera.
GMT, David Foster with you here on Al Jazeera. The top stories live from Doha. Protesters in the Libyan city Benghazi are preparing to help people still fighting troops loyal to the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. These pictures appear to show Gaddafi's son safe, arming civilians to help keep them control of the capital, Tripoli. And we're getting reports of fighting still going on in the city of Misrata. Opposition groups in Yemen have rejected the offer of a national unity government made by the country's president. And Egypt's Prosecutor General has imposed a travel ban on former President Hosni Mubarak and his family. He's also ordered a freeze on all of their money and other assets inside the country. Yeah, more on what's happening in Libya. It's feared the country's leader, in quotes, Muammar Gaddafi, is launching counterattacks in parts of the country, despite protesters taking much of Libya. Benghazi, pretty peaceful on Monday, by all accounts. Just taking a look at what you're seeing there. But our reporter says some people may be planning to help protesters still fighting Gaddafi's forces. More from Lawrence Lee on the latest developments.
You'd be forgiven for thinking that if a town only half an hour from Tripoli is in the hands of protesters with tanks, then the end must surely be near. Yet the days drift by, momentum ebbs and flows, and for the time being, Gaddafi's regime has enough to avoid falling to the people's uprising. Given the routine way in which Gaddafi's armed forces have been switching allegiances over the last few days, one of the questions that keeps being raised is how are the Gaddafis maintaining a fighting force? Up until now, the chief spokesman for Gaddafi has been his son, Saif al-Islam. He has routinely accused the media of lying about the fighting. Maintaining Libya is entirely at peace with itself.
The point that you are hearing rumors, false reports, please take your camera tomorrow morning, even this night, go to every city in Libya. Everything is calm, everything is peaceful.
And yet this has now emerged. The same man, semi-automatic in hand, exhorting people to fight for his father.
I'm here to raise your morale. They are spreading rumours that our police and security forces are joining the hooligans. It's not true. Today we'll show them that the police are siding with Libya. I'm bringing you reinforcements, resources, food, weapons, everything you need.
Discounting the irony that Saif al-Islam Gaddafi has warned about the prospects of civil war while seeming to arm a militia is the question of the extent of Gaddafi's regular military forces. This is the Bainin air base, said to be one of the most important in the country. The military here say they've joined the uprising.
The whole base responded to my call to join the People's Revolution. We have great staff. As military personnel, we want to be clear that this is not a military coup. We are not leading anything. This is a people's revolution led by the youth. Our role is to protect and support it. That's our main aim.
Away from the headline towns, it appears that little places too, where Gaddafi has assumed control for decades, are quietly realigning themselves. This Facebook video is said to be from Zintan, southwest of Tripoli and near the Tunisian border. Enough men with arms here to protect a fuel convoy. This video, also from Facebook, is from a tiny-looking place called Kakla al-Jabal, also in the west. They raised the flag of protest here unnoticed, but it's another community lost to Gaddafi. If Western Libya remains on a knife edge and will determine Gaddafi's fate, all the reports from the east suggest people trying to get on with life after Gaddafi anyway. The other big question is whether cities like Benghazi actually want to move on Tripoli, or whether they're happy to let Tripoli decide its own fate. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
Well, let's take a look at some pictures coming out of Geneva. We've heard from a number of big-name diplomats such as Catherine Ashton, head of the EU's foreign policy organisation, Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, and William Hague, the UK's foreign minister, all talking about what's happening in Libya. William Hague actually saying these events, if they reach some kind of reasonable conclusion across Middle East and North Africa, could be as momentous as the fall of the Berlin Wall. And very soon we're expecting to hear from Hillary Clinton, the US Secretary of State. That's what's happening in Geneva at the UN Human Rights Council. A story reaches us out of Brussels that France, according to one diplomat quoted there, unnamed, but quoted as saying that France has called on leaders of the European Union's member countries to meet as soon as Thursday of this week, a special conference on what's happening in Libya and North Africa. That's what the French want, according to this source. Another EU diplomat, again unnamed, saying it's one of the options France has asked, but some big countries are against it. OK. That's what's happening out of Brussels. These live scenes from Geneva, waiting for Hillary Clinton. As we do so, let's go to Libya itself. Hoda Abdulhamid in the city of Benghazi. I'm going to take you through a number of different points I'd like you to cover, Hoda, if that's OK. First of all, what is the feeling in Benghazi about the people, as suggested in Lawrence's story, taking part in some kind of drive towards Tripoli to oust Gaddafi?
Well, certainly there is a will to do that. I don't know how sure it is actually happening, but there have been many calls over the past few days for people to try to go to Tripoli to help the people of Tripoli there. Now, this is a very difficult trip to do. If they go by road, they'll have to go through Sirte. Going through Sirte means to actually most probably find themselves face to face with the elite forces of the country, the paramilitary forces under the command of the sons of Muammar Gaddafi. If they go by planes, they do. The opposition says here that it has gotten hold of helicopter gunships and a couple of jet fighters, and they were thinking about trying to do that, but then they have the risk of actually also being downed. So the will is there. Whether it is happening, I don't think so at the moment. I think there has been some individual efforts of people just picking up their car, driving through, and just trying to get as close as possible to that area.
A no-fly zone. A lot of arguments for it, a lot of suggestions that it would actually be unhelpful. Forgetting the politics of it all, the reason why some people say it would be unhelpful is that you have to enforce it, which would mean sending up other countries' aeroplanes in the sky to shoot down Libyan aircraft. What about the people there? What do they make of it all?
Well, actually, the people here say if there's one help the international community wants to provide to the Libyans at the moment is to impose a no-fly zone. And that's specifically because they accuse the government of flying in what they call mercenaries, meaning African nationals who come in paid by the regime to fight alongside the regime forces, the opposition. Since the beginning of this uprising, really, the opposition has been pointing the finger at mercenaries, showing to the media pictures of Africans with their passports, saying that those were specifically brought in to kill the Libyan people. That is why the National Council asked for it. The people are asking for it. They say that that is needed much more than any kind of sanctions or embargo you would like to impose either on the Libyan government or the family of Muammar Gaddafi. For the Libyans here, that would be much more effective.
And oil, Libya's big natural resource. Now, 80% of the oil fields in Libya, it is said by some, are now under control of the demonstrators, the rebels, for want of a better word. But I suppose the real point is, even if they are, how much oil are they able to turn out at the moment? What do you know about that?
Well, I did speak to the opposition about that. Now, certainly here in the east, where most of the oil is, they say that they are controlling most of the refineries. They say it's running at a minimum capacity between 10 to 25%, depending on which oil field we're talking about. The opposition says it will honor all the legal contracts that have been done mainly with Europe. It is trying its best to increase capacity, even though most of the workers who were on the oil fields were Westerners, and most of them have been airlifted and have gone back to their homes. So it is trying its best. The Tobruk port, which is the main gateway for the oil, has reopened today. There are some exports happening, but there is a realization in the opposition that they cannot do it alone. They don't have the expertise, and they will need back those foreign experts as soon as possible.
That's Hoda Abdulhamid. Thank you very much for that, reporting from Benghazi. Now, in Egypt, turning our attention to that country now, public prosecutors issued a travel ban on the former president, Hosni Mubarak, and his family, apparently pending further investigations. And these orders a freeze on their financial assets inside Egypt. This is after a previous order to freeze the family's financial assets abroad. Mubarak's the most high-profile, most senior official of the previous regime to have a travel ban imposed on him. Let's talk to Ayman Mohyeddin is in Cairo for us now. Ayman, I suppose a lot of people will be wondering whether, in fact, this is just a prelude of other action against Mubarak that may already